Welcome back to 13 Days of Horror. Today is gonna be a long trip, so please buckle in, grab some snacks. If you do watch along with me, please let me know. I'd love to hear that. Today I'm back in my office, just gonna chill here and watch a film. Got my vibes going on, got my dog hanging around, and yeah, it's, as I said, it's gonna be a long one. This is a 2-hour and 15-minute film. It's called Demons and it's from Japan. The director for this film is actually known for his experimental films, and by the looks of this one, it looks like it's meant to be a lot older than it is. Obviously it's from the 70s, but it looks like it's from the 50s or even the 40s. It's also the highest rated film, I think, on the whole list. Actually, I think this is the highest rated film, and this is why I kept it, the highest rated film that was suggested to me for 13 Days of Horror this year, and I had over 1,000 requests. But I feel like this one could be up to your interpretation or your personal taste, so I'm a little bit wary, I have to say that, but I wanted to throw in something that was very challenging and different, and maybe something that you haven't seen as well. So the film seems like it has a simple premise. It is about a warrior that gets robbed by a geisha and then seeks revenge. Pretty basic for 2 hours and 15 minutes, we will see. I know a lot of people don't like when people complain about the length of films, and I totally agree. There's a lot of films that I love that go for a very long time, or in trilogies, so I do agree there. But with what I've seen of the trailer, I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe it's gonna be this huge, like, epic. Hopefully it's an epic. For an 8, usually it is an epic. So I'm very excited to tuck into this one and just see how it goes. Shall we get started? Hi guys, it has been a little while. I just finished watching Demons from 1971, a Japanese horror drama. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one, but I mean, it is what it is. I did not like this film. I just don't think it's really suited to my taste. But for what it was, I thought it was well done. So it is based on a play, which it doesn't have very much information about it at all. I had to dig. It's based on a play. This is the name of the play. There's no way I'm going to pronounce that correctly. I do know a little bit Japanese. Ichi-ni-san shigo rakushichi hachi kyuchu. But yeah, not that much. So as I said before I started the film, it is about a geisha that steals from a Rowan warrior. But does she? It's very complicated. And as I said, you hope it would be complicated given the time. It was kind of an epic, which, yeah, in itself makes sense. But it also makes sense that it's based on a play, because the way the film is shot is very theatrical, kind of stage-like. They have a lot of people like entering the scene, exiting the scene, and it's all done in several like internal, there's a couple of external scenes as well, but it's all very much like a play you would go and see. So it makes so much sense now I know it's based on a play. I think that a lot of reasons because this film does so well, the classic storyline, it's very Shakespearean in a way. It's all about like revenge and revenge served cold. I don't know. It's like about the coincidences and the irony of the situation. So the film pretty much was about, stealing and betrayal, but it is all about this amount of money. And for me, I just couldn't get fully into it because what they were doing and the betrayal and the level of betrayal and the level of violence and all of that over money is crazy. But obviously that's the point of the film at the same time. It's meant to be like money is the root of all evil and it makes people do ridiculous things. So I do get where it was going, but for me it was more suited to a stage play than a film in itself. I was really excited by the opening sequence. They also have this like rising sun, or is it setting sun, and that's in color and everything else is in black and white. And when you see these violent scenes in the black and white, it seems so much more contrasted and just cold and awful. Like some of the violence in this film is awful. Awful is in like the level of it. So a lot of it was so dramatic, obviously on purpose, but the experimental film was what I felt like was lacking for me, because at the start you open to this sequence, the shots were intense and there was these bodies that were like trailed off into the darkness, these amazing shots and different angles. And throughout the film, they have a couple of experimental moments. Like there's one moment this guy breaks open this crate kind of barrel thing, and they do it like 6 times with different shots for dramatic purposes, obviously. And then they had some more experimental stuff just before that in a scene. But other than that, they really started with this crazy experimental, really playing with the darkness of the film as well. Like, as I said, trailing off into the darkness, but also people's like heads turning around and their face was the only thing that was lit up and everything around them was dark. And it was like the darkness was consuming them. And I thought that was really interesting. But throughout the story, again, it turned into more of a stage play. So it lost that experimental effect. But I mean, again, this is a personal thing because I love watching that. It makes it quite interesting for me to see experimental work. But I know that that might have been too much for a lot of people. That's why they only had it as like a bookend kind of situation. So again, it depends on the person. I think this is a really personal film depending on what you like. There are some older Japanese films I really, really love, and I don't think that this is that old. It's 70s, is not old. House is from 1977, and that is one of my favorite Japanese films. It's so weird that these films were only 7 years apart, but obviously this film is mimicking, older film. But in saying all that, I'm kind of putting off doing my score. I didn't love this film. I loved aspects of it. I thought it was a interesting tale of revenge, and I think that it was really ironic, but again, very Shakespearean in that way, but more suited to a play-like setting. But that could be some people's complete jam, I do think it's made really well, but I have to give a personal score. So my personal score is 6 for this film. I don't think it was too long though, surprisingly enough. I didn't have a problem with the length. I thought that every shot was needed to create that effect, and because they were going so true to the stage-like play, it made sense to let everything play out, people entering the room and leaving the room, and you seeing the wide shots of everything. So it made sense with the atmosphere to do that, but yeah. I'm going to stop over-explaining myself. Scare score, I'm going to give it a 7, just because there's a really intense scene. There's a lot of blood. There's warriors. There's a lot of knives. But there's this one moment that is pretty brutal, pretty gross, and the sound. And for originality, I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't think it's a very original tale. They say that there are roots to some older Japanese tales throughout history. So it's a tale of revenge, and that is one of the revenge and money and love and betrayal. That's like one of the oldest tales of time. So I don't think it's that original. Very interesting. I'm giving this a 6. This is one of my lowest rated films for the month. But again, that's just my personal score, but it's interesting because this is an 8 out of 10 on IMDb. But scores are different for different people, guys. It's just the way it works. Anyway, let's head over to the genre map and the mark. Okay, Demons from 1971. Where does this land on the map? This one is a little bit hard because there isn't a lot to it other than being a drama horror. There's a standout horror aspect. But I would probably say gore and disturbing, believe it or not, which would be our first one. I don't think it really fits. I mean, yeah, a little bit. There's like a lot of killing going on, but I think it's more gore and disturbing. So maybe definitely not monster, definitely not psychological, and definitely not paranormal. Even though it's called Demons, there's no occult in this film, unfortunately. So I'm going to go gore disturbing, but because there's like a killing aspect in there, I'm just going to put it right here, so it's kind of on that line. I don't know, what do you guys think? Have you seen the film? Did you think it belonged there? I'm sure you didn't agree with my personal score, but do you agree with where I put it on the Venn diagram? And let's go to the bullseye. Okay, if this is your first time seeing the bullseye, you need to go watch these episodes first, so definitely go back and come back to this. It's ruined! Don't look. This is based on film's intent. I have to say this one is kind of bang on with the intent. As I said, it's based on a play. It looks like a play. It feels like a play, and it's been rated like, it really pleased some people for what it was made to look like. And the story is meant to be this ironic tale of revenge and betrayal, and I do think it really did hit the mark. You know what's really interesting about this is I would say that this one hit the mark almost maybe the best so far, And what's crazy about that is it's rated the highest, and not for me personally, but I really can say that they hit the mark on what they intended to do. There was no question about it the whole time. It was obvious what the intent of the film was. So I'm actually going to put it in the middle. And now our bullseye doesn't look like a bullseye anymore. But yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of gives a different layer. Sorry, little man under there. It kind of gives a different layer to this now when you think about it, depending on how I scored it to how other people scored it. Although other people scored this a little bit higher. But yeah, I mean, that's a different story for a different day. It was a different story for a different day. Speaking of, thank you so much for joining me. We're past the halfway mark and we're on to the home run. My Halloween carving will be coming up in a few days, so definitely stay tuned for that. But if you have been liking this series, please support it by giving a thumbs up, commenting down below, letting me know your thoughts on how I've put it together this year. I've been loving all the comments so far. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Stay spooky. Bye.